on the microphone because I don't care to use the microphone, but I'll try to talk into it. But then also I can stand in front of the screen, so I might be right up here talking once I start this or whatever. But the whole thing is about tonight's presentation I did right before COVID. There was I did basically a 2-volume history reference of the Harrison County Basketball League tournament, and that's what tonight's about. I thought we had to set up to do a presentation then, and it fell through basically, and then we're doing this one, and we might try to do them again next winter during basketball season when more people are inside. And if we do that, we'll set up each school, individual school, that'll have their own time period. Like this hour will be Bowerston, Conotton Valley. This hour will be Jewett. Isn't that correct? I might try to do it that way. But tonight I'm doing all 3 of them, and I'm doing it chronologically because I didn't think it was fair to make you sit through Jewett or Scio or Bowerston and Conotton. So we're going to do it chronologically. And these are for sale. There's several hundred hours of research in it, and it has details. One guy I'm familiar with, Denny Leister from Lakeland, when he bought his copy and he's reading, he goes, yeah, I didn't even know my grandfather played for Moorfield High School when they had a high school. So you find out some things that you may not have known of. But the 20s, 30s, 40s, even when I wrote this in 50s, the older 20s, 30s, 40s, I tried to give a lot of detail to because they're gone, and as a historian, you have to be the voice for them. So it's quite detailed, 508 pages on the history, and we'll get started here. And I'll get out of People's Road here. I can stand here like this. I don't want to be in these people's roads, but I can enunciate. So you can see there that the county annual tournament went from 1927 to 64. That's 38 years. The league lasted till 71 when Jewett and Scio combined. New Aces and Hopedale, of course, then went to Cabot in the Harrison Hills Local School District. I am a 1983 graduate of Lakeland High School. We were district champs in 82, district runners up in 83, and IBC champions that same year. I'm third from the left. About 100 pounds ago, of course. But that's where I'm from. At one time or another, there was 13 teams in Harrison County that played in the tournament. As you can read there, the years are noted. Bowerston, 1950, that's last year for them. And then the last year for Freeport, Short Creek, all these places. And then the first year for Conotton Valley and Lakeland are listed there. And at one time or another, all 13 of these teams played in the Harrison County tournament. Caddis played in the first 5 tournaments. They only played in the 5 tournaments, and then they became an exhibit village like a lot of other county seats did. Woodsfield would be an example, or Caldwell. They were larger villages. Denison was an exhibit village, and they didn't have to play in county tournaments. They got a free pass for the sectional. The whole idea behind this, the girls were playing at this time period as well up until 1940. Then the Ohio High School Athletic Association outlawed girls basketball. It's old Victorian proprieties, guys that are, in the 60s or 70s, not letting them do it. You can see here, Scio won 8 league titles, went 5-5 in tournament championship games, and therefore they won 13 total titles. Franklin was second. Hopedale dominated early in the 20s, and then Scio came through, and the Franklin were dominating most of the time. And then Bowerston, Jewett, and Short Creek were shut out. Tippecanoe actually had a girls' team. And you can see there were 13 league titles because they had the league from 30 to 40, and then they outlawed the ball. Last year there was a 3-way tie. They had a playoff. And then 14 tournament championships. And the reason it's 14 and 12, it should be 14 and 4, is because the Caddis girls lost 2 championship games. So that would all add up. On the boys' side of the ledger in this time period, the leading team is Freeport Lakeland, won 20 league titles, as you can see, and them and Scio both played 16 league championships, or tournament championship games. And the whole idea behind the county tournament is you had to get to the championship game, Harrison County got 2 teams that went to the sectional, except a few years. In 1928, Franklin, there were only 4 teams playing. They lost the championship game to Caddis. They did not get to go to the sectional. Tippecanoe's last playing years, 1948, Jewett gets beat by Scio, and they don't get to go to the sectional in 1949. The next year they decide, hey, yeah, come on down. Freeport's a hard luck guy. 42, 43, and 45, Tippecanoe did not have teams because of racing or whatever and stuff. So they had 3 teams that made it to the county tournament championship game that did not go on to play in the sectional. That's what the minus applied to their tournament thing there. In the 1920s, you can read this. In 30s, teams would play any team. Scio High went up and played Canton National Business College and defeated them because Ralph Voorhees, a former Scio player, was the center for that college. So these high school teams, they play men's independent teams, college teams. They'd even play church leagues teams, stuff like that. And I like the vernacular they use in this thing. All ball captain team with Great Burial and Kanaga. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce that name. We gained his science at Point City. And then you'll notice we talk about Minkle and Peberling being Stonewall as guards. In this era, the guards were not playmakers like we're probably familiar with. They guarded the basket. So if you see a guard and you say, well, that guy's 6'3", and there's a 5'7" guy listed here. The guards in the 20s and 30s guarded the basket, and then they forwards were the main scorers. It was very specialized, like football had been. 1926, the Scio team went and played with the Belmont County teams in Monroe. You had to have 4 teams at the county tournament in order to be able to have one. But Monroe, Belmont, and Harrison County had 8 teams at the 1926 combined tournament. And Scio went over there. They were defeated by St. Clairsville, much larger school, of course. And Franklin, UAPAs also went. They won 1 game and they got beat in the semifinals. And then 1927, we're going to see where Harrison County starts its first county tournament. The first 2 Harrison County tournaments were played at Waters Auditorium on Court Street in Caddis, and I believe that was a roller rink. And this photo was a 1913 yearbook, and you can see it's quite big, a lot larger than the gyms were back in the 20s and 30s, so it's very conducive to play basketball, but there's no seating. So you'll see once the Caddis Auditorium that we were all probably familiar with, when it was built in 1929, they moved in there, and the big plus for that was you had actual seats to sit in, as you can see there. In that roller rink, you didn't get to have much seating. People stood when they watched the games. The Harrison County League tournament site, everybody but Franklin got to host it. Caddis had it 22 different times. As you can see here at 3 different sites. They had it at that roller rink, Waters Auditorium, the new auditorium, and then the John Stevenson Center that still exists now had the last 2. Conotton Valley, when they built their new gym in 54, 55, they hosted it every year until Lakeland built their gym and had it in 62. 58, Hotel built their new gym and they had it. In 1932, the rural schools had a falling out with Caddis because they were no longer playing in the tournament. They didn't schedule any of the county teams so they could play on their floor. You know that you'd want to do that if you're going to play the county tournament there. So they started moving the county tournament around to the other schools in the 30s, you can see there. Twice it was a Freeport, Bowster in 34. Scio built their new stage auditorium. Caddis and Scio actually, both their gymnasium auditoriums were palaces at that time period in the East District and actually hosted sectional tournament games a few times. So these are the each boys team's record in the county tournament championship game. Caddis played in the tournament 5 times, made it championship game 4 times, went 3-1. And 2 of those were 1-point victories, so it's by no means that they're blowing opponents out. Germano, Moorfield, Short Creek, Tippecanoe all played in the tournament at one time or another. Short Creek got beat by Scio in overtime by 1. Georgetown, but they went by Short Creek Township. Hopedale used an ineligible player in 1929. They defeated Short Creek and then Caddis. And it was reported they were using an overage player. Not only was he over the age, which is 20, he was going to be 21 the following month. And it sort of jinxed them. And they never ever won a county tournament championship game. They went 0-8. Jewett, very competitive, almost giving up as many points as they're scoring. They go 4-8. Obviously, you want to have more victories, but you get to go to the sectional tournament to represent the county. The next best thing to winning it is actually playing for the title. So going 4-8 is pretty good. And then we have Scio came up with the most wins at 10. And then we saw Bowerson and Conotton Valley combined at 7-5. And then the Freeport team was 7-2. And the overachievers at tournament time is the Franklin team. They only ever won 2 league titles, but they went 5-2 once they got to the championship game. Lakeland was 2-0, 9-7. So the Scio and Freeport Lakeland played, as we noted earlier, 16 championship games. And when you got to the championship game, other than those negative numbers I showed you at the beginning, and that happened at Freeport 3 times, you got to represent the county at the sectional tournament. That's tournament. This is league, regular season titles. For the first 6 years, there was actually 12 league games. And then it became a 16 league basically, and they only played 10 league games every year, which is what everybody's familiar with. When the Conotton Valley one came up there, they had 6 titles. The bold underlined ones, this is for everybody, they were undefeated teams in the league play. And not every undefeated league team won the tournament title. And not every league team. The county tournament and the league ran concurrently 35 years, and only 16 out of the 35 years did the league titleists also win the tournament. Every time that Hopedale won a league title, they tied with somebody. Jewett won 3 titles, and we saw that earlier where Freeport and Lakeland combined together had 20, and Scio was second with 14. They have a coach coaches in the 40s, from 45 through 53. Scio has a big dynasty, which like I was talking with Al Thompson earlier, the Potteries thriving at that time, and they probably had the largest enrollment of the county schools at that time. That helps. You can get quality through quantity. If you have more students to pick from, more players, you may have a better team. County League ran 42 seasons, but we had 10 coach champions. That's why there's 52 champions. We'll break this down and go through it. I know I'm going pretty fast, but these teams are successful. Caddis, we're doing the first 5 years because Caddis played in the tournament. They won it 3 times, and then Franklin blitzed them in 1929, 40-18. Franklin had probably the best player in the county that played 4 years. His name was Virgil McNaughton, and he may have been the first county scorer to score over 1,000 points. And he played the forward position, and in that era, the forward players were the ones that did most of the scoring. They weren't the only ones, but it was very specialized at that time period. The Scio Panthers made it to the first Harrison County Tournament Championship game. And they're playing the county cedars, and of course all the rural schools are pulling for them to beat the county cedars. And the game goes into double overtime. This is how the box score appeared in the paper at that time. They had the field goals, and they didn't divide it up by teams, so it's a little bit hard to read. 1 referee up till the 1940s. Now at the tournament, they start with 2 referees earlier than the 1940s at regular season games. So in the early 20s there, we only have 5 or 6 teams playing at the tournament. Lee Henderson was a sophomore, and he wrote in the Jewett yearbook that they needed to get a gymnasium auditorium, and they and Freeport both passed levies to build gymnasiums, and that's when the league was formed, 1929-30. And they would both play in the first tournament, which would be the 4th one. And there'll be 9 teams playing at that time, because there's 7 teams in the league, and then the Caddis would play there as well. Leesville actually had a high school as we saw on that first slide, where Germano and Short Creek and Moorfield are losing their school charters in the 30s. That's probably when Leesville lost their charter at the same time. And Bowerson joined the league a couple years before Jewett or joined the county tournament a couple years before Jewett and Freeport would come in, and they were talking about getting the gym built, and it wasn't completed, and they would play their first game. They lost to Midville, but then the second home game they played, both the boys and girls teams defeated Short Creek to inaugurate the gym with a win finally. And then they do a fairly decent job because there's 3 county newspapers in Harrison County up until 1968, naming these postseason teams. Bowerson wasn't playing in the tournament until 28, so there's not a lot there. And then Jewett did not play in the tournament until 1930, so there's not going to be, that's why there's none listed there. So up through 29, Scio is your most decorated players there, and that first one was over at the Belmont Combined thing. The girls are the best in this time period. Hopedale goes 20-0, does not win the county championship. Scio girls got beat by them twice during the regular season, and then pull out a 2-point overtime decision to upset them. So there's very good basketball being played by the girls at Hopedale and Scio, and you must remember, they played 3-on-3. You had 2 forwards in the center at one end, and 3 defensive players, and they were called guards, of course, that we already went over. But this championship game, Hopedale won the county tournament 27, 28, and 29. You see a changing of the guard where the power shifts to the Scio team here when they win this game in overtime. And Hopedale will play in the championship game one more time in 31, and then after that, it's mainly Scio and Franklin playing. And then at the end of their era, in 1940, when the girls quit playing basketball, Freeport is starting to build a very good team. Tippecanoe played the girls basketball till 1934. Then they quit playing, probably didn't have enough interest or enough students because they graduated about 6 people a year, and they were only a 3-year high school. Jewett girls quit playing after the 1935 season. So then we were down to 5 teams, so you'll see the records of these teams. Scio, boys, girls, they won both tournament championships in overtime in 1930. And the Caddis Kiwanis at that time, the very practices they used to do was they would feed and banquet the county championships teams, and then in each village there would be organizations, civic clubs, or whatever. It was a big deal, much like you see, although it's a much later time period, like you see in Hoosiers. You know, it's a very representative of the community at the sectional level and at the county tournament. It was a big deal. The Custer Hotel was built in 1925, and at the 1930 tournament it said that they housed 4 of the teams that went over and played there at Caddis. This Scio boys team was really good. They won both titles. The first 11 years, or 13 years of the league, there was only 2 times that they were dual winners. Win the league title, win the tournament title. This is one of them. Another one's going to be the 1933 Scio boys team. And it's kind of neat to see these schedules come up here like that. And I know it's going through fast. The idea is to get you interested in purchasing the book. Is to see that the teams that are playing, you know, the other places, villages that have schools or townships, and then how their schedule changes from one period to the other. I find this stuff very interesting. I'm very passionate about it, and I'm really happy to do this too. It's a 2-volume historical reference book is basically what I've done. And you saw this where Scio, they lost 2 games to Hopedale during the regular season, and at home they lost by 1 there on February 7th, and then they were able to turn the tables and had to play the semifinals, beat Franklin by 2, and they beat Hopedale. The second and third best, well, Hopedale was first, Scio was second, and Franklin was third, so they beat the other 2 best teams in the county to win. This tournament affair in 1930, I believe it's the Caddis Republican, they'll come up here for us. It talks about sportsmanship being nowhere, especially among the people in the crowd, and then we're just lucky that it didn't rub off on the teams too much. You know what I mean? So, same problems, different, decade, but it's a great touchstone for the villages and stuff like that. Every year they're wanting to change the rules. One of the noted rules I have here from the Herald Star, it just announced that they're going to be changing these rules. 1930, the big rule change for 30-31 is If you made a field goal, you would no longer get 2 free throws, you'd only get 1, which is the way it is today. But before that, if you made a field goal, you got to shoot 2 free throws. You got fouled in the act of shooting, you shot 2. 1931 is the last year the girls played a competitive tournament. Everybody played it, and there's 9 teams, so it's great. But the thing is they decided it was too much for the girls to play more than 1 game in a day. And after the 1931, the first place team would play the second place team for the quasi championship. Short Creek had really good teams. They had one of the smallest enrollments in this era. And as you can see, it's the only time they tied for the league title. The year before, they had got beat by Scio in the tournament championship game. Short Creek had a 3-year high school. They lost to Charter in 34. Tippecanoe, Moorfield, Short Creek. They, when you left there with a 3-year diploma, you could go to one of the adjacent school that had a 4-year diploma. A lot of times, the Short Creek people would go to Caddis because they wanted to play football. And they, Tippecanoe, 3 years running, provided Freeport with a leading scorer on their team the next year. You know what I mean? So they have a feeder program. The largest county tournament in history, there's 18 teams there, 9 in each gender, as you can see. And they started playing the games. You had a running clock. You had to jump after every main basket and free throw. You could get a game done in an hour, easily. So that's why they're playing so many games. Because of 9 teams, if there's only 8, you got to win 3 to win it. The Scio girls, they went 4-0 this year because they had to play that pigtail game in, and they had to play Short Creek, and then they had to play Oakdale. When they got to the championship game, they had a breather. They had to play the first, because it's a blind draw. They didn't seed you by how you finished in the league. It was a blind draw where they placed you on a bracket. So they had to play the toughest 2 games. The first 2 games, when they got to the championship game, it was a fairly easy game. The Oakdale girls had went undefeated once until Scio beat them in 30. Scio, 1931, they go undefeated and win 4 tournament games, which is outstanding for anybody at the county tournament level. But we saw that there's 9 schools playing at this time. One of the closest games they have is against Dillonville. You can see they're playing girls teams down there. And it's always interesting if you look at the rivalry games. Of course, the big rivalry is Jewett and Scio, but then both of them with Bowerson and Conotton. And there'll be sometimes a 50-point swing. Scio will beat Jewett by 25 points at home, and then go to Jewett same year and get beat by that much. You know, it's very odd. So, you know, it's interesting. And just remember that the girls are playing 3-on-3. You have 2 forwards in center at 1.5 in. You can't cross half court, and then there would be 3 guards, so all you got to do was play defense. So we looked at the entire girls' tournament. They only played from 27 to 40. And remember, the first 5 years till 31, you play a competitive tournament. Those tournament championships over there, 32 to 40. The first place team is playing the second place team, so it's not really a tournament championship other than a quasi one. We noted earlier that Scio and Franklin both played 500. Oakdale was great early on and then lost 2 close games to Scio in 30-32. And then Freeport was coming on at the end. Then Caddis losing 2 championship games made it nice for everybody else to have a competitive record as far as the championship games go. And you see the 3 undefeated teams there. Scio 31 and 35. You can see that we're losing girls teams as we go along. By 1935, Scio was only playing 13 girls games. And then the 30 Oakdale girls team was undefeated. They got defeated in the championship game by Scio by 2 points. So the girls playing just as well as the boys are at this time. So we had to group the county tournament up to 31 because Caddis is playing in the tournament. So they're no longer there. So we're going to look at this decade here. And Scio and Bowerson and Jewett, they all have their runs here. And remember, when you get to the championship game, even if you finish as runner-up, you get to go represent the county at the sectional tournament. And our sectional tournament always included Belmont, Jefferson, and Harrison County. Jefferson County had a lot more schools, like all the schools in the East District, that have the more populated schools always did well in the long run. You can see here that superscript is the number of times that they're champions. So 1934, that's Scio's 3rd title. And then down there in 1940, that's their fourth runner-up. So that would be 7 times they've got to represent the county at the sectional level already. And in 1934, the two friendly rivals, Jewett and Scio, would play each other. 1933, the tournament's back at Caddis. They moved it to Freeport. 1932, they had a falling out to go back for 1 year. The Republican does a real good write-up for them. You notice it says Scio, Freeport, and Jewett colors are red and black. Now, I don't know if that's a misprint or then if Jewett changes their colors to orange and black later, because that's what their colors were, correct? Orange and black. So I don't want to tell you, that they were this and that. But we have Tippecanoe, which I grew up in Tippecanoe. I didn't know they had a high school until you start doing this research. That they had a high school till 48, and their colors were scarlet and gray. We were talking earlier that the Scio team in 30, the boys won both titles in 1933. They're dual winners again, and like I say, that only happened 16 times. Just because you won the regular season title doesn't mean you're going to win a tournament. Hence, that's the name of the 2-volume set I did called Upset. Because you will see throughout these presentations the word upset. Upset. You know what I mean? And this team is very good. Lost a couple of really close games. And then at the sectional tournament over there, Shock and Sacred Heart beat them by 1 point. And then Ralph or Fred Thompson I had there, I couldn't determine which one was the ball player because we had no microfilm for the Scio Herald from that time. But in the yearbooks, I saw that these two guys were in the same class, and I don't know which one played basketball. You know what I mean? So, talked about in 31 that you had 18 teams there because there was 9 for each gender. 1934, the girls are just playing first place team, plays second place team. So the boys decided to start doing a consolation tournament, and they give a consolation trophy. And if you're a coach, that helps for next year, because even if you get beat in the first game, you might get to play a couple more tournament games. And there are 10 teams playing in the boys this year, the most ever, in 33 and 34, because Moorfield, Short Creek, Germano, and Tippecanoe are there. The other 7 schools were members of the league. And then they have Short Creek's a member of the league, then Germano, Moorfield, Tippecanoe. Consequently, they're playing one game right after another. So then, on championship Saturday evening, they played the girls' championship game, as you can see the score there. And then Franklin came through. Franklin High School, I believe, won 20 games this year, played 5 county tournament games, did not go to the sectional. They ended up with a consolation championship. They won 2 games over there on the 22nd, 23rd. They got beat by Scio at the bottom of the middle bracket in the semifinals, and they had to beat Bowerston in the semifinals of the consolation bracket, and then beat Freeport to win it. And they played 5 county tournament games and did not go to the sectional. And the whole idea, like we said, about the county tournament is to eliminate about 75% of the schools in the state as they advance along towards the state championship. The friendly rivals, as we noted, play an overtime game. And you'll note that the 4s, that I noted earlier, are specialized in offense. But it doesn't mean they're the only ones that score. Medley for Scio has 19 points, and Carl Stewart for Jewett has 17. So they sort of have a one-man battle going on there. You have a very, very close game, and they always just as exciting as any tournament game played later. Where the crowd sold out or whatever. In this time period, like I say, it becomes an annual event like the county fair, and people look forward to go to it every year in February. They can't wait to go and see how their school represents their village or township. You know what I mean? So it's a very good thing. We lost Moorfield and Short Creek in 34, and they said, well, let's have Tippecanoe join the league for 1 year. This is a card from Bowerston. It shows they only have 13 games scheduled. They ended up playing more. And admission prices during the regular season are 15 cents for students, as you can see, and 25 cents for adults. And even in the 20s and 30s, we talked about them playing all kinds of teams, business college, independent teams, church league teams. They would also play games long after they have been defeated in tournament play. They play up till the weather, got better so you can go outside. But you'll see in some of these schedules where games played after the county tournament, and it's just like they kept like winning the flag. So Jewett, the Wildcats finally win their first county tournament title in 1936. They defeat Bowerston. They will become the second team in the Harrison County League to win a sectional game. Freeport won games in 32 and 33. Caddis had won sectional tournament games prior to that, but they were not a member of the league. They did play in the county tournament for those 5 years. But this team was very good. They got a really good tournament draw. They had Franklin on Hodell, I think we'll see, in their side of the bracket. And one of them had 1 win and the other one had none, or something like that. And then they ended up playing Bowerston, which didn't have a very good record either. So all the good teams this year were in one side of the bracket for the county tournament, and then teams with the worst record, 1-loss records, were on the other side. But this Jewett team was still very strong because they qualified for the sectional, of course, by winning the county tournament, and they actually imposed a win over Smithville. And this is one of those years I was talking earlier about. You can see their sectional tournament was played at Caddis, and this is the second year that they hosted the county tournament at Freeport, because they had that falling out with the Caddis personnel. Eventually they go back to Caddis from 39 to 46. Then they have another falling out. The fact is, when the Harrison County League was formed, they asked Caddis to join the league, and they said no. They had joined another league before that. And that's kind of fun, ironic, because later on, they start playing an exempted village tournament. Caddis asked the 61-62 season to be put back in the league. And all the rural schools in the county voted unanimously not to put in the league. You know what I mean? So what goes around comes around, you know what I mean? And that first year at 32, when they took the tournament to Freeport, they wouldn't let any of the teams play. They didn't schedule anybody to play, and if you want to go play on the tournament floor if you can. And like I said, even though they had a weaker bracket, once they got to the championship game, Bowerston had beat Tippecanoe and I think Hopedale, and they had lesser records than Bowerston did. So Jewett, sometimes you have a cakewalk. This is one of those years where they did. However, with that said, like I said, they went to the sectional tournament and then became only the second league team to win a sectional tournament game. But after a competitive first game there, Jewett just gradually built larger leads. This leads to the key word you'll see throughout this thing is upset. The 1937-38 Panthers go 10-0 in the league. Freeport will upset them. They got trounced by Scio twice in the regular season. Well, actually, over Freeport, they lost by 9 points. And the first game of the tournament, Freeport beat them by 5, so they can't go represent the county in the section now. They come back and they dump that Freeport team in the consolation championship game, but it's too late by then, because they've already been knocked out of the running for the sectional. So whenever both teams fought, as soon as they won their semifinal game, they would always write in the paper that such and such schools got their sectional berths, because it didn't matter whether they won the championship game, they were going to represent the county at the county level. This one is also kind of neat because James A. Scott's the second one down there in white, and James Z. Scott also played those 2 years. So when I was doing this book, I was getting confused. I was like, this guy played for 6 years, but there was like 2 years difference between them. James A. Scott was Dr. Scott here, and then the other one I'm not sure how it was related. This is a great style team. Goes 18-2. Does not get to represent the county at the sectional tournament, and that's because of that key word, upset, as you can see there. At Freeport, they beat Freeport by 9 late in the season. Earlier in the season, they swamped them at Scio by 23 points. We're still not back to Caddis yet. We're playing over at Hopedale. They built a new gym. They've been using the college facility over there. They built a new gym in 38, and they'll build a new gym in 58, and they'll have the tournament for 1 year, and then they move back to Conotton Valley because they believe Conotton Valley they could jam more fans into, allegedly. But very good team, 10-0 in league play, 3-1 in tournament play, did not get to represent the team at the sectional level. And this, just to show the Bowerston girls, they never got to play in a championship game or anything, but they in 1935, for 3 years, they just played the first place, played second place. They go, well, let's let the third, fourth place girls play each other. And yes, they had tie games. Those were the records right after each school's name. Freeport had 3 tie games that year. If the girls game ended tied, we don't want to stress them out and worry about their, you know, they couldn't handle it. The old Victorian propriety, which is a bunch of BS. And Bowerson won the third place by defeating Freeport. And you can see their records there and all the tie games they have. Fact is, the one year that Scio girls won the league title, they went 10-1-1, and Hopedale was 10-2, so they only beat by half a game. So we saw Jewett and Scio was having some success, and then finally in the late 30s, early 40s, the Bowerson team started to have some success. Why didn't anybody go to be even in this? I try to watch. But the 39, Bowerson finally wins its first tournament. They played in 36 for the title against Jewett, so this will be their second sectional tournament appearance. And I think it's interesting. We will note that at schools, they probably have all the balls that they have at the school in that photo. It looks like two to me. You know what I mean? So, and then they had the knee pads and socks, and then they looked like they had black canvas shoes. And some of the photos we had earlier, they had the white, you know, khaki canvas, the straight. And 1939, Bowerson wins their first tournament championship. This is their record. Scio and Bowerson both finished in a tie behind Jewett. Jewett won the league 9-1, and he got beat by Scio in the semifinals. So once again, you see the upset thing where the league champion doesn't even get to the championship game. But these are the two second place teams are pretty good, and they come and they have a real game going. Scio gets within 4 at the end of the third quarter, and then the Bowerson Trojans run away with it in the fourth quarter. Those are the overall records at the time the game was played, and then what their league record was. So you can see here that Bowerson's playing Augusta, Denison, St. Mary's, and Carrollton, which is a much larger school. The fact is, there was 2 divisions in this era, all the way up to 1970, and they were in the larger school division by this time. Early on, up to about 1931, Carrollton was in the small school division. And you can see that they beat Scio in the championship game. We had that box score up there. You go over to Belmont for the sectional tournament, and they have a blind draw, and Scio was better with Bowerson. And so they beat Scio in the sectional game, and then Scio had lost to them in the county championship game, but then got revenge in the sectional tournament game. So the whole entire season, the ledger was 2-2. Bowerson won 2, and Scio won 2. I know Jewett in 1954 beat Freeport 4 times, and I finished the book on the started multiple volume history of the state tournament. There's one team that won the state championship in 1960 beat one team in their town 5 times, but that's because they advanced 2 out of the sectional. Miss Margaret Colcraft is coaching these girls. Margaret Galbraith at this time. This Scio girls, any team that's dual winners, are very good teams. They're playing a lot less games than they were before because we said Tip had dropped their program, and 35 Jewett dropped their program, and a bunch of other schools outside the county quit playing basketball, so it was hard to find the game. And Scio lost a few games in the mid-30s. Sherricksville was the only team that was beaten pretty regularly, and they wondered what they should do about it, so they hired the coach, Margaret Galbraith Colcraft, to come to us. He wasn't Colcraft related, to come to Scio and start coaching them. Unfortunately, you know, the 1940s is going to be the last year that they get to play. These mythical teams that they named, actually because we have 3 papers, although in the 30s there's no microfilm for I don't know if Scio or Harold named the team or not. There's a Freeport Press, the Cass Republican, will be naming these postseason teams. The Freeport Press is really cool because they start naming a first team and a second team and an honorable mention list. And what it does for you is it gives you an idea of how good these players are in that time period. Because this is voted on by the contemporaries, the coaches, or in the early 30s they had newspapers do it. That superscript in white is the number of times they appear in that list. If you get somebody that has a 3 or 4 there, they're pretty darn good. I only know one player that has a 4, and that's Denny Leister. But there's a few guys that have 3 that you'll see up there. Raymond Spears right there in 1937. Obviously a good player. And then the girls, they only list teams up through 31 because that's the last year we had that competitive tournament where everybody played. After that, you just played first place against second place. And they felt no need to name it all. Sequoia Payne for Scio, one of my favorite names when I was researching this. There's a few other ones that may come up. I might have to mention from time to time, but Sequoia Payne, I always thought that was an interesting one. We talked about Harrison winning that first league or tournament title in 39. Then they win their own league title the next year. They have a lot of players that come back. And once again, that key word again, we have upset. They get beat by Freeport in the first game, so they're going to be the league champion, and they're not going to go to the Central. It happens more frequently than not. As I said, 16 times the league titleists win it, and 19 times they did not go to the section. But in 1940, they had about 4 players back. I think we'll see on the next thing when you have the team schedule and the roster. The asterisk by players' names when it comes up on a roster, that means they were 11 from the year before. Okay? And also in the 30s up through the 40s, noting who the captain is very important because coaches weren't allowed to call timeout. The captain pretty much ran the team. You know what I mean? The only time the coach could talk, I haven't found the rule that the only time the coach could talk to the team was halftime. And that changes. In the 20s and 30s, I know that's true. I'm not exactly sure I haven't pinpointed it when it happened. But like I noted, the Bowerston team lost their first game. And then this is the last year they have the consolation bracket, 1940. Because in 41 they quit playing the consolation bracket, and then we still have Tiffany Canoe playing, so we have 7 teams there. So somebody would receive a first round bye, but it's not until after TIP quits functioning and has its high school charter revoked in 1948 that you get down to the 6 teams that almost everybody that here that was a member that played the league or whatever. That doesn't occur till after the 48 season. Because typically he's going to have a team until then. Alumni game, especially if players went on and played at college, they were always heated battles, and sometimes a team might only have 1 or 2 losses, and they might be against the alumni, because this was such a vicious game at the time period. This is the boys on the left side, and as I noted earlier, in 1930, Scio was tied with Oakdale. And in 1933, that's the only, on the boys' side, dual champions, where the league champion won the tournament title. You know, every other year, the league, they might go as a runner-up, but they would lose the championship. On the girls' side, you can see the Scio girls won 8 consecutive, or not 8 consecutive, won 5 in a row, and then 8 altogether. That last year, 1940, you have 3 teams tied for first. So Scio and Franklin played off, and Scio beat Franklin, and then Scio had to play Freeport for the championship, and they decided Franklin should play Bowerston, who won the 3rd and 4th place game. These are the girls' county tournament scores by school. As noted, Jewett only played up till 1935. They went 0-3. Bowerston, although they went the entire time, 1940, they have I think it's 4 wins in 11 games. 30 and 31, they're getting to play. They're winning because there's 9 teams there. So you got plenty of competition. Some above you, some below you. And then from 36 on, they're only playing like a 3rd place game and 4th place game. In 1940, they beat Oakdale for 3rd place. And Franklin, who lost to Scio in the playoffs at first with them in Freeport, they ended up playing each other again. So they got a few tournament games in. Scio girls would win 8 straight tournament games. Obviously in 30 and 31, they had the competitive tournament going, so there's a lot of wins there. They got 7 of those. Then after that, if you're playing an entitled game, which is what the white asterisk indicates, you are only playing 1 game. It's first place against second place, like I said. With the Scio girls, very competitive. So were the boys, and then both we see Jewett, Scio, and Bowerston, not boys 1941, Jewett ties Freeport for league title, runner-up in the tournament. Jewett actually beat Freeport both times, but then they won 14 games at the beginning of the season to start with, and lost, I think, a game at Hotel and then Scio. They put them in a tie with Jewett, and they'll end up losing the tournament title to Freeport. It's their best defensive player, Max Baker, second from the right, started pulling the ball down, almost like a good defensive stance instead of offense. And you can see the lane's only 6 feet wide, of course, at this time period, up from 1957 and 58. But this team had 14 consecutive wins. Go to play Freeport in the county tournament championship game with Max Baker, considered the best defensive player in the county, has the flu and did not play. So, needless to say, they were defeated in the championship game because Freeport had one of the great offensive players in the Eastern District, and he's clear across the state now since they averaged well over 20 points a game. But you can see that they beat Freeport at Freeport the first league game of the year in overtime. Then in the middle of the season, Freeport comes to Jewett, and Jewett wins again by 1, and late in the season there, Jewett loses at Bowerson by 1, and at Scio, so they have 4 road games in a row at the end, and end up losing 2 league games that push them into a tie. But like I said, they get beat in the championship game by Freeport fairly easily, and then they go on to Steubenville and play Yorkville. Yorkville is building a very good program at this time. In fact, in 2 years, they'll be the first East District team to win a state championship in the small school division in 1943. But you can see senior-laden team, so they're going to be rebuilding it next year with Jack Craigmile and Gerald Wilson. Were actually named honorable mention All-Ohio in this time period. There's only 2 divisions, and in the Class D division, there was over 900 schools. So it's a very small percentile being named All-Ohio, even just an honorable mention. We'll move on to the 40s. And as we noted earlier, the superscript is the number of times. So 41, that's Freeport's 3rd championship. They won 1 in 32, they didn't win again until 40. And then also, like Jewett over there is runner-up, it's the 4th time they've been runner-up. We got the scores over there, and up till 1944, scores seem somewhat low. There'll be some in the 40s or whatever. But in the late 30s, one thing that helped with the scoring was they changed the balls where you had the bladder, one seamless bladder that we're all used to. Before that, you used to have threads on it like a football or medicine ball, so it's kind of hard to shoot. And then also, the 44-45 season, E.E. Shoemaker's final season, they went from 4 personal fouls to 5. Well, what's that mean? Well, your starters can play longer. That's what the hell that means. So, the better players are going to be out there. So you see right there, that's just from my research I've done. 45 on, the scoring, increases because you go from 4 personal fouls to 5. Plus, officials might start calling more fouls because they know how they have that extra, to call, so maybe they're shooting more free throws. So we saw Bowerston won the tournament title in 39, league title in 40. Freeport kind of dominated 40 and 41. But then we're going to see that word upset. Bowerston upset Freeport in 1942. And we get into a 3-year war between Bowerston and Freeport. They were playing the championship, if you saw the slide earlier, where we listed the scores from the 40s. Bowerston beat Freeport 2 straight years. In 1944, Freeport finally beats Bowerston. They played 3 straight years in the championship game. Now, I brought this box scores up here for you. And after the 42 season, Hopedale was barely having enough players to play gas racing cards. So you see the league games, 1943, Bowerston only played 6 games, and Freeport played 8. In the following year, once again, Bowerston only played 6, and Freeport played 8. I really think that Mr. Emerson Roman, in 42 and 43, he passed back into duty as superintendents were all over the state of Ohio and the country because of men being taken into service. And Tippy Canoe did not have a team in 42 and 43. So when Freeport lost that championship game, those 42 and 43 teams did not get to play in the sectional tournament. In 44, guess what? Tippy Canoe had a team. I think he did some finagling, make sure they have a team, because we're going to be in that championship game. We want to go to the sectional. But they ended up being Bowerston, And then in 45, Freeport gets beat by Scio, we're going to see, and they don't go again because, once again, Tippecanoe did not have a team, you know. But this is the deja vu, the Trojans winning back-to-back titles, 42, 43 over a couple of Freeport powerhouses. One thing to note is, they only have one ball this year, I'm joking. But I like the numbers. If you look, they're all 60 to, 69. And I believe back there on the right is Ray Shimmerman. You can't see his number, but I bet money it's 64 if you look at all the others. You know what I mean? And it's always interesting to look at the accoutrement, the knee pads, the ball, and everything else. So after Bowers and Freeport get done with their war, the balance of power shifts to Potterville, as I used to use the term back at favorite. Scio Panthers win their first tournament title in 11 years. They had not won since 1933 and 34, as you can see from the slide there. And they tied with Freeport for the title, and then they defeated them in the tournament game to take the rubber match. And say there's a switch of power, excuse me, Scio would go on to win the next 6 county tournaments and league titles in a row. And that's kind of unprecedented. Although Yorkville, over in Jefferson County, won their county tournament 6 years in a row, same year, 1945 to 1950. I get around a little bit, so, you know. I believe we've got the box score here. E.D. Shoemaker, who's sitting right here to my right, was the starting guard of fourth for Scio, and scored 9 points in that game. Had a real good game going at halftime, and then Scio comes out and shuts Freeport down with only 4 points in the third quarter. But like we said, on the whole, this is the first year we showed where we had a 40-point game before, but they become more regular, and we'll see more games in the 50s. Because this is the year they went to 5 personal fouls. And the Caddis Republic is all tournament teams, and these are all listed in this book every year. They would list the all tournament team in the Caddis Republic, and you can see Freeport and Scio well representative on both first and second team. And then also Joe Pangracio, the well-known official, started this year as a basketball coach, and I'm figuring he probably got called into the service. And then Dean Terra, who was teaching here at Germano or somewhere, ended up taking over the Bowerson team. And that was happening not just in this county and not just in this state, but all over the United States with the interruption by World War II and the shortage of manpower. There's even records of female teachers taking over boys teams. You know what I mean? It's great that the teams get out there and play. So 1945, Scio Panthers tied for the league title, win the county championship, and Ben Hendricks was the coach then, and then he was the coach the following season. And a lot of times they like the coaches, whether they're football coaches or basketball coaches, because a lot of these schools didn't have football teams, although they started 6-man football teams here in the 40s. And they like getting coaches to be principals and superintendents after that for disciplinary, you know, in case they have to disciplinary boys. You know what I mean? So they, a lot of coaches would go into administration. But this is the second season, and the Panthers hang up a 10-0 mark in the league play, go 18-7, and they're playing Amsterdam, playing Tuscarawas County teams, Denison and Tuscarawas. Tuscarawas had some really good basketball teams in this time period. I know one year Tuscarawas could be this year 25-3. All 3 of their losses were to Strasburg, who was the Tuscarawas County power throughout the history of their tournament. And you can say they're playing Sherricksville. And they actually lost the Sherricksville game, and that's where Coach Hendricks came from. So no matter how bad that team is, that becomes a rivalry game. Over at Lakeland in the early 70s, Bob Raver came from Springfield, and in 73, the team at Springfield only won 7 regular season games, and Lakeland had the second season of Steubenville Sectional and got upset by 1. You know, it automatically becomes a rivalry game if the coach comes from another school. And Coach Hendricks had come from Sherricksville. They come over, they win the county tournament handily, and then Second time trips are exceptional at that time period, and they get beat by Agena. We're headed into the golden era of Harrison County. I know people might think it's later or whatever, but these Scio Panthers. Talking to Bob Pugh, I talked to him many times several years ago. I used to be a sports writer for the Harrison News Herald, and he said that the gyms are still fairly small then, that they would, when they had these Scio teams in the late 40s and early 50s, all the way up to 53, Bob Pugh would help lead a team to a 20-0 mark, and his younger brother Dick Bush would lead the team to 20-0. He'd go to his game, and it would hang on the door, a sign that said it was sold out. So they wouldn't let you in. You'd have to bribe somebody to get in. So, Coach Hendricks had coached those 2 years. 47, we have a new coach in Frank Samuels, who's, I believe, a 1937 Caddis graduate, and he would be probably the greatest basketball coach of longevity of more than 5 or 6 years. He's going to go on to win 6 county tournaments in the 7 years he coached. And in 7 years he coached the Scio, he had 5 teams win 20 games or more. He won 142 games and lost only 35 in 7 years. That's good in anything. But we're in 2 divisions. There's a hell of a lot of schools in the small school division. They never got out of the district. They got beat in the district championship game twice. I do believe when we looked here later, it was Strasburg both times. It was like I said, they had a powerhouse. And Strasburg, in this time period, 40s and 50s, they have 3 or 4 undefeated teams, but they won't win their state title until 67. This 6-year run of the Panthers, 45 to 50, this is the closest championship game score that we have. And you can see that they have Jewett on the ropes at halftime by 5, and they fight back into it, get within 2, and it's a dog fight to the end. So both teams will end up 17-7 because they both lose their first sectional game. But once again, different generations from up there that we talked about, 30 and 31, but everybody, like County Fair, plays standing room only, places sold out, and they're back at Caddis at this time period. And it's not until I think Scio might have host the tournament in 52 or 48, and then once they get to Conotton Valley gym, it supposedly held more fans than anyone else. And the fans are always concerned about having a seat, which we still have plenty here if you need to text some friends. There will be a second part to this. We'll stop at the midpoint and stretch for a second if anybody needs to go to the restroom. If these teams weren't so successful, we wouldn't be here so long. And they are. Every team has their peaks and valleys, and some of them, the peaks are higher than other ones. This is obviously another one of those 21 seasons for Coach Samuel. 1948, building a powerhouse, and not every year, but almost every year, he lost the county league game that was to the rival Jewett Wildcats. I think one other year they lost to Freeport. It's blemished. 1949 to 1950, the Scio Panthers will go undefeated in league play, and that won't happen again until 65-66. As you can see, a 23-5 record is great in any era. And this team, they didn't have any parameters on the number of games you could play yet. And in fact, it was in 1948-49 we see here, Scio played 24 regular season games. They got invited to get down to Yorkville to a holiday tournament because Yorkville had Cager, who was a first-team All-Ohio. Bob Hugh is named first-team All-Ohio. Ken Alessi, first-team All-Ohio in 48 and 49. Bob Hugh in 49 and 50. That's part 1. How long a break do you want to take? 5 minutes, 6 minutes? Anybody need to go to the restroom? Get a drink? Continue on? Continue on? We got to go all the way to 70. I go to 72 because a bunch of guys that played the last week here in 71 were playing in 72. I know it's a lot of information, but like I said, they haven't been so successful. Well, see any other stuff. I got a good issue.
out of the road or not? Can you see all right when I back out of the road?